Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Nur Aina Husna binti Muhammad Nasir. My metric number is 2012180, and I'm going to explain the first part of our presentation, which is the summary and the evaluation from the article given. So the article that we have received titled as Using Constructive Analysis to Promote Conceptualization of English Sentence Patterns in the Malaysian ESL Classroom, and it is written by David T. I'm going to proceed for the first point of my explanation for general overview of constructive analysis according to the article. So the use of the first language or mother tongue has been viewed as a help for learners in encouraging to become more comprehensive as well as understand the meaning and structures of the second language, which is L2. The acquisition of L1 could be supported when learners applied CA method in order to comprehend and construct English structures together with generating and elaborating ideas. Let's talk about the constructive analysis deeper. So, constructive analysis is a language theory of using the first language or mother tongue, and it is a method and structure in analyzing languages, specifically between the first language and second language linguistically. The analysis of the language structures by comparing and contrasting enhances the language knowledge and usage for learners. So there is one of the models in constructive analysis, which is structural taxonomic model, or it is called as STM. So it is a model of constructive analysis, or CA, that provides learners in analyzing the differences between two languages grammatically as well as its similarity on its structure. So there is two procedures in this model. The first one is describing the surface structure, and the second one, it goes deeper, which analyzing the deep structure of the language. Now I'm going to talk about the evaluation from the research study that has been conducted based on the article. The first part, I'm going to talk about the methodology that has been used. There are two research methods that have been used for this research study, which are quantitative and also qualitative research methods. From the quantitative, they wanted to look at the percentage of error identification by using need analysis. And need analysis is one of the methods that they use, which is adopting the error analysis in order to identify the lack of their language knowledge and also usage. And from this method, participants are provided with several of tasks. So from qualitative method, they use reflective logs to look at their feedbacks and also reflections after going through intervention program. So for the findings part, or the results, based on the percentage that have been found based on the need analysis, participants are able to identify the errors that have been made. However, they are unable in explaining the reasons and ways in correcting the mistakes. According to the reflections and feedbacks from the participants, it is reported that participants suggest in using their L1 as a help in learning and constructing their L2. And overall, based on both data, it is stated that participants agreed that using their first language to learn the second language, which is the English, helped them in improving their understanding and knowledge. Other than that, it helped the participants in constructing better structures for their second language, as well as enhancing both languages through the CA or constructive analysis. Teachers also reported that there is a positive feedback from the students in adapting CA or constructive analysis to brush up their English proficiency.
Moving on to the next part is the problem statement. So, the problem statement in this article is that there is a lack of understanding among learners in applying the rules and structures smoothly, which leads to the discouragement of these learners to study English in an appealing second language environment. So, therefore, this is why the researchers are doing this research. moving on to the next part is the research gap. So there is a very little study in regards to using L1, which is first language, to teach sentence patterns in English, especially within the Malaysian English as a second language (ESL) setting. So this is a research gap between other past studies. So that is all from me.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Iza Husna, and I will be further talking or discussing about what was the significance of the study. As we know, the researchers apply contrastive analysis or CA practically in the classroom. This is because they believe that this helps in assessing how using L1 will help in the learning of English as a second language, or ESL, for Malaysian students. And how is this actually important? This is because the researchers found that differences between L1 and L2 may slow down the learner's ability to understand the meaning and grammar of L2. Thus, contrastive analysis approach is actually helpful in helping the students to conceptualize the structures of L2. Not only that, the researchers also aims to strengthen the findings of the previous study. In the first studies, it is actually shown that L1 helps with the comprehension of literary text among the learners. And in the second study, it is shown that difficult phrases or words are encouraged to be paraphrased by the teacher using the L1 to ease the explaining process, which helps students to understand it better. For example, the teachers they would translate and paraphrase from English to Malay from Malay speaking students, and the teachers would translate and paraphrase from English to Mandarin from Mandarin speaking students. And in the third study, it is shown that to formulate strategies at different stages, Malaysian students tend to rely on their L1 when writing. And this is also in agreement with another study, which shows that students use L1 to firstly generate ideas and content, secondly, monitor language use, and thirdly, it is the source of their lexical items. That is all for the significance of the study. I pass the floor to the next presenter.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. I'm Nur Ain Sakina and I will be proceeding with the research questions. So how many research questions are there? There are a total of 3. So the first one is, does CA, contrastive analysis, of Mandarin Chinese, which is L1, and English, which is L2, promote the conceptualization of English sentence patterns among Malaysian ESL learners? Okay, that's the first one, the main one. And then the second one is, what are the factors or elements that may make CA a useful approach to teaching English sentence patterns with the use of Mandarin Chinese? And then this third one is the opposite of that, which is, what are the factors or elements that may not make CA a useful approach to teaching English sentence patterns with the use of Mandarin Chinese? Okay, that's for the research. That's the research questions. Moving on to, how was the study conducted? Okay, so there are a total of 7 participants, 4 females and 3 males. They are from the same school. They live in a rural area of Sabah, and their age are between 14 and 15. So all 7 participants unanimously agree that their dominant and first language is Mandarin Chinese. And then the third one, participants displayed little to no progress in their English proficiency. Okay, that's the background of the participants. So the study is conducted into 2 stages. The first stage is by adopting the precepts of CA and applying them in a series of research lessons. which is by using error analysis, error identification exercise with broad themes where participants, those 7 participants, have to identify the distortions of deviations in a given text, and then they are to rectify and provide viable justification for the correction for each distortion or deviation identified. And then they were given a 200-word text where each line contains an error and is not pre-identified. So they need to identify the um, errors. Okay, so there are a total of 10 errors in each text. Okay, it's also worth noting that EA exercise was operationalized as a needs analysis, which aimed to identify the participants' specific language needs. The findings then inform the intervention program. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is the sample error identification exercise that the participants were given. Okay, so as for the second stage, the participants provided feedback about what they think and feel about the research lessons, where their L1, which is Mandarin Chinese, was incorporated and used. So qualitative data was also gathered from the participants. These qualitative data were collected in the form of reflective logs. The participants were required to complete the reflective log, where they provided feedback about their experience throughout the study, although their responses were given in English rather than in their L1, which has in hindsight, however, the researcher insisted that the participants to respond in English may have discouraged them from providing a more in-depth reflection, as they resorted to stringing brief responses. This is the reflective logs. Alright, that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Arisha binti Azwi with the metric number of 2016980. Will be present the most crucial part from this article review, which is the findings or the results. So based on this article, they collected two types of data, which is quantitative data and qualitative data. So we will be looking at both of the results. But first of all, overall, the article provides its finding clearly. It is also nicely arranged and it can ease the reader to read it. Okay, so the first one we will look at the quantitative data. So the participants were competent in identifying language errors. However, they struggled to explain what the errors were and how they should correct the said errors. In contrast, this suggests that the participant's ability to detect fault was not based on their knowledge of English phrase patterns. Instead, they sensed faulty structures in the sentences based on what they have memorized. Prior to the start of the intervention program, the participants were able to correctly identify the majority of the errors on average. However, later, after completing the first cycle of the program, their proficiency in identifying errors dropped almost 50%. This suggests that they might need ample time or more time to adapt with the contrastive analysis approach. Okay, moving on to the next results that collected through qualitative data. So from this data, two modes are used in collecting qualitative data, which are the learner's reflective blog, the first one, and the second one is the after-class reflection from the teacher. For the first mode's results, students agreed that the use of L1, which is their mother tongue, Mandarin Chinese, when learning English, helps them to understand better. For the second mode's results, the teacher noted that participants reacted positively to a contrastive analysis approach to learning English, although they noticeably require more time to adapt to the new approach. Moving on to the next part. Do all the research questions being answered? As we have seen from the previous presenter that there are three noticeable research questions in this article that they would like to arise and they would like to conduct a research about it. So let's see whether the article answered all the research questions that available and that arise in this paper. So the first one, does contrastive analysis of Mandarin Chinese and English promote the conceptualization of English sentence patterns among Malaysian ESL learners? So, CA-oriented programs seemingly failed to promote conceptualization of English sentence patterns among the participants. Since why? Why did it fail? Because since they were quite nervous, they struggled to understand as it contained many words and phrases that they are not familiar with. So an alternative explanation of why participants struggled during the post-test is that they were expecting a few more contrastive analysis sessions before they will undergo the post-test. So before they have taken 2 sessions only before they undergo another test, so they're quite lacking in preparation, contribute to their struggle to understand the text that they were reading. The second cycle of the CA intervention program commenced a week after the post-test activity, and the participant recorded a slight improvement in identifying errors and also a slight regression in justifying rectification when compared to the pretest. These data suggested that the CA of English and Mandarin Chinese slightly improved the participant ability to detect distortion and deviation in English sentence pattern. CA can also impede participant understanding of this pattern and their capability to explain them. Okay, so finish with the first part of the research question. Moving on to the second research question that appears in this research, which is what are the factors that may make CA an effective approach to teach English? So this paper answered with 3 different points of why, what is the factors that may affect CA is an effective approach. The first one is emphasize understanding and memorization. Being able to comprehend what they are learning is crucial to the participant. Contrary to conventional rote learning methods, they do not have to rely on memorization to learn sentence patterns in English, as memorization tends to make learning L2 harder. Learners also run danger of producing grammatical errors if they memorize words without fully understanding them. So, therefore, one of the factors is emphasize understanding and memorization. The other factors is it can lower the learning anxiety. Learners might feel more ease or more comfortable when learning a language that they are familiar with. Discussing or contrasting 2 language systems in their L1 provide a safe platform for them to explore and experiment with these languages. And the final one is CA will make an effective approach in learning English as it promotes additive bilingualism or multilingualism. So, when learners using the L1 to learn English, they were able to communicate and discuss the structures of both languages. Using the L1 is not seen as a barrier to learn L2, but instead, it is seen as an effort, an ongoing process to become a bilingual or a multilingual. Moving on to the last research question of what are the elements that may not make CA an effective approach to teach English? So this paper um, introduced 2 elements of why they might think that CA is not an effective approach. The first one is overgeneralize certain grammar rules or sentence patterns, and the second one is over-reliant on their L1 as a word-for-word translation tool. Okay, let's go through one by one. Overgeneralize certain grammar rules or sentence patterns. The usage of CA could theoretically give L2 learners a false sense of security or possibly cause confusion. When participants are allowed and encouraged to utilize Mandarin Chinese, they might end up overgeneralizing rules or phrase patterns in Mandarin Chinese and transferring them to English in an indiscriminate manner. And the second one, they might be too reliant or over-reliant on their L1, which is the Mandarin Chinese, as a word-for-word translation tool. While the CA-focused curriculum may help them become more self-assured learners, they might become overly reliant on their first language for word-by-word translation. The CA technique focuses on increasing learners' language awareness of the L2, many linguistic structures and patterns. However, while CA provides a safe haven for learners to experiment with many languages in diverse formats, they may become complacent or even careless in their usage of the L2. And last but not least, let's take a look at the implication that the researchers found at the end of their research. First of all, the use of CA may help to promote better conceptualization of English sentence patterns among learners. The second one, the use of contrastive analysis as a multilingual language learning system thus provides learners and teachers with a focal point. Next one, CA can serve as an intermediary learning resource, aiming at scaffolding learners to be proficient multilinguals in their own context. And last but not least, CA-oriented program can function as a remedial language program that complements the conventional mandatory language syllabus. And I guess that's all from us. Thank you from Group 6. And wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.